Welcome to the Rob Liefeld Show featuring Robservations. I bring over 40 years experience in the world of comic books and entertainment. Across 5 decades, I offer insights and opinions on the business and the art of comic books and pop culture. If it's happening in games, in streaming, in movies, in comic books, we are covering it and discussing it right here. Hey everybody, and welcome to an all-new edition of Robservations, the Rob Liefeld Show featuring Robservations. I'm Rob Liefeld. I'm your host. I'm so excited to be talking to you guys again today. Thank you. We are going towards 6 years this year, 6 crazy years of a show that started out of my, I love saying this, abject loneliness in that crazy, terrible, awful pandemic period. We were all just so isolated. We didn't know what was up and what was down, and our heads were still spinning. I think our heads are still spinning. But you guys, comic books is my baseline. It is my eternal baseline. Look at these juicy Hulk comics, those Daredevils. Okay, comic books have always been my baseline. They are where I go in trauma, in panic, in stress, or for just the best joy. Okay, I got an omnibus the other day that I had been waiting for. To come out. It's we'll possibly go through it here on the show. It's called Warlord. The incredible Mike Grell, who had come off a fan favorite run on the Legion of Superheroes, did a complete swerve. I mean, one of the biggest zigzags, and he created a sword and sorcery book called The Warlord, and he did 30, 40, I don't know how many straight issues he wrote and penciled it. But it was signature. Mike Grell, I to this day, and he left, and great talent like Dan Jurgens followed him and continued. But I identify that book singularly with Mike Grell. It was a creator flexing, showing his interests, showing his kind of his favor for a certain style and a genre. Warlord is about a modern day pilot who crashes and falls into a famous hidden realm. And this was during a period, the land that time forgot. That was a live action movie before the land that before time. Those are two very similar franchises. But the land that time forgot was a Doug McClure action starring film. Some pretty crude special effects. I watched it again a couple of years ago. It was one of those that you go, oh man, this definitely doesn't hold up. But what holds up is the comic book adaptation, which had this bitchin' ass, beautiful painting that should have been a movie poster. Back when Marvel was doing a lot of movie adaptations. This is like circa 1974. So this is right when I'm grabbing comic books. But Hidden Realms, whether it was Marvel's Savage Land or the land that time forgot, or what was going on in Warlord, or in all over all different aspects of adventure and science fiction at the time. Hidden Realms were a cool thing. The land of Skataris is the hidden realm that our hero finds himself in Mike Grell's adventure. And Mike Grell really never looked back, even after he left Warlord, after this incredible run on Warlord. And again, the omnibus arrived the other day, and I was so excited. I was so excited to just sit and just scoop up. Here it is in one collection, one giant body of work. It was so amazing. I loved it so much. And that is pure joy, that connection. But Mike Grell, Warlord was just the beginning of where he would go for a significant period of his time, of his career. He did a book after that he owned for Pacific Comics. And we've covered Pacific Comics. Go back through the back catalog. One thing about this show, especially in the first 3 solid years, when I really felt as if I was sharing gems, stuff that maybe the modern audiences weren't familiar with. I talked about Pacific Comics, created from a small distribution unit, Pacific Distribution, with the Shanas brothers, one of which who would go on to be like the consigliere of Diamond Comics, like the right-hand man, the hand of the king, Steve Shanas. He and his brother Bill, it was Bill Shanas, he and his brother Steve started Pacific Comics with launch titles from Jack Kirby and from Mike Grell, and Mike Grell went from Warlord to Star Slayer, and eventually you got Dave Stevens, the Rocketeer. Yes, you would have no Rocketeer, or it would have come about some completely different way without the Rocketeer launching at Pacific Comics, I believe, in as a backup story in Star Slayer. So Mike Grell, seeing his work collected, just gives me complete joy. It is an escape. Like, you make your hot chocolate, you go sit down on your recliner like I did, and man, I just flipped through and just had the best times, because those Warlord issues, like so many of the other comics that I talk about with you guys, I can tell you where I got them, where I read them. I've recounted many tales. One of the earliest stories that I told on this podcast back in 2020 was the first time that comics made me cry. Death of Phoenix made me cry. Death of Elektra made me bawl. Death of Phoenix I read in a Carl's Jr. at a mall that no longer exists. They've modified it. It's still it's a plaza now, not a mall. The mall was self-enclosed, and the Carl's Jr. was like an anchor at the beginning of the mall itself. And then there was a store called the Broadway, a Robinson's, and a Mervyn's. Those were your three other anchors. But at the entrance, there was the big Carl's Jr., always busy, especially on weekends. But I sat there at the booth and couldn't believe that they killed Jean Grey. Ironically, Elektra, I experienced sitting in the car while my mom went into the mall, a mall that is still there, like almost a replica of what was there when I was a kid. The Buena Park Mall, which is right across the street from Knott's Berry Farm, if you've ever been there. I recalled those stories, and they were the first time that I felt something like that. These characters that I loved. Elektra had become beloved. She was the hottest character in comics for a good solid year, eclipsing Spider-Man and definitely eclipsing Wolverine. And it was just, she was the most exciting, dangerous, mysterious character, a product solely of Frank Miller's writing and pencils. You could only encounter Elektra at that time through him and through Daredevil. And her significance came because of her relationship with Daredevil. And when they unexpectedly killed her in the middle of this giant storyline that had been building for a year, it was, whoa, it was a complete shock and a complete reset. Comics just have provided so many positives in my life, so I always look to them and love to talk about them with anybody. Like I said, I've got friends who are captains of industry, but what we don't talk about their $15 million an episode shows that they're producing. We talk about comic books. We talk about what's in the Heritage catalog. We talk about, the latest and the greatest. This episode today is a mailbag episode. I put out there some ideas and some thoughts on Marvel Comics, and you guys responded. I got over, actually, almost 2,000 responses. I can't read 2,000 responses, but I'm going to share with you a lot of what was shared with me across Spotify, across Apple, across YouTube, and my own group, Rob Liefeld. I'll just do that plug right here, right now. Facebook, I have a group. It's called Rob Liefeld Marvel Extreme and Beyond. It is a really fun group. We share a lot of history and a lot of enthusiasm. It is kind of the baseline of that group is my own career, 41 years into my career this year, heading into my 41st year. Hired as a teenager, love sharing that because I can't believe I had the drive. I mean, I felt like my junior and senior year I was auditioning in my art classes. Constantly, I would be given my own, curriculum, and I could just turn in storytelling pages to get grades. I had some really great parameters in that school, even though my teachers believed that I was wasting my time. And just like my mom, what are you doing? Why aren't you going to be something? She didn't say this, but it's what they meant. All of our moms mean this when we want to be musicians or writers or artists. Like, why can't you be something respectable? Back then in the 80s, so my junior and senior year are 83, 84, 85. Why can't you be a doctor, a lawyer, something that's surefire? I feel it now. I've got you end up having 3 kids of your own, and you completely understand some of those notions, but you've learned not to express them near in the same way that is disrespectful or garners, resentment and really communicates fear. Okay, but you get it. I get it, and everyone thought I was crazy. So I'm excited that I was able to break in as a teenager, get hired at 18 years old, and be in this comic book industry now for 41 crazy years. The story of 2025. I read a bunch of surveys. Heidi McDonald, whom I love, she has been around this as long, if not longer, than I have. I've done her podcast. I've interviewed her. I've done interviews with her. She has worked with every major company, corporation. She has the beat on the internet. If you don't read it, you should. I think she's one of our last honest reporters with integrity. She's not scared to give her opinion. She's learned to value truth above all else, and she's not manipulated. So many of the bloggers, so many people that you watch and listen to are scared to say one critical thing about any one of the big entities, the big corporations, because again, as I've discussed here, they will lose access, and losing access, they would lose their life. Okay, someday we'll go in a lot further into it, but I know that many of them, honestly, it's a trap. They feel trapped. They literally cannot express their true feelings about anything. They have to lie through their teeth most of the time, say that they like stuff that they don't like, so they're part of the cheering squad instead of the, the execution squad, where they're not invited to the premieres or the parties or the set visits, and they don't get access to the interviews. Heidi's not like that. She's pretty straightforward. She shoots straight. She did an end of 2025 survey. It's in 4 parts. A lot of people that you may not recognize. She gave these questionnaires to a lot of different retailers, writers, artists that are not going to be names that jump out at you. They don't do work for Marvel and DC Comics. They don't. There are a lot of independent people. Everybody in the prevailing answer was the Diamond Comics bankruptcy. That bankruptcy did not touch me at all. Everyone said it touched everyone in the industry. It didn't touch me. I spent most of the last year in direct-to-consumer mode, and I'm going to continue direct-to-consumer mode. And I understand certain stores don't like this approach, but the stores are the generally not the first stop for my work. It's going to be the last stop. And until things change, that's how it's going to be. I respect stores. I want stores to continue. I buy from stores. I'm invested in the retail experience. I appreciate retailers and all they can do. But I have to trust in my ability to reach a consumer base. So for me, the story of 2025 is direct to consumer and how to expand that. But in all of these answers, I didn't feel in any way, shape, or form that Diamond, while it was a nuisance and it was something that people talked about, trust me, I travel in the packs of many of my friends are owners of Image Comics. They are executives at other businesses. Diamond did not take up the majority of their thoughts, their concerns, their worries. It wasn't on their minds in regards to how to succeed or not to succeed. I feel like the story of the year, and you guys shared it with me here, the story of 2025 was the absolute collapse of Marvel Comics. Right before I came on here, a guy from Gotham City Comics, right before, and it probably is going viral right now, he gave an interview. It's on Instagram, and he said, never in my entire comic book career, and he says it crosses 4 decades, has he ever seen DC be just legitimately clear and away more popular than Marvel Comics. And that happened. That happened in 2025. He gives credit beyond absolute Batman and absolute Superman and absolute Wonder Woman to other books at DC. And once he starts doing that, he completely is at odds with all the retailers that I know who will tell you that it is only the absolute comics that are generating the heat. But it is such significant heat. It's just like when the network has 3 shows. I've talked about it. ABC went all the way back to relevance in 2004 on the back of 3 shows. Lost, Desperate Housewives, and Grey's Anatomy. Boom. 3 shows turned it around for them. 4 shows on NBC turned their fortunes around in the 80s. Cosby Show, Family Ties, Hill Street Blues, and Cheers. And everything else just kind of rotated in and around those. Sometimes you can do it with just a couple titles, shows can break you, and it can break you big, can break you into the next level of success. In the absolute titles, 1,000% have achieved that. But I know stores that cannot sell the majority of other DC comics, but they tell me, Rob, I sell so many absolute comics, it doesn't matter. One absolute title equals 3 to 4 of another book. So if there's 3 absolute titles, that's 12, the equivalent of 12 based on their breakdown. And as they expand those books, I expect more success. There was a big name retailer who came out, had a big diatribe on Facebook and said, I don't understand why everything isn't going to the absolute model, absolute everything, because he believes that moniker. Now, the flip is that's the fastest way to burn it out. So you can see why they're not, because they've got something special and they're nursing it and they're guiding it very carefully. Marvel Comics did not have one single comic that generated any buzz, any heat. The biggest thing that Marvel had going for it in 2025 was Marvel Rivals. That game ignited big time February, March, April, May. Marvel Publishing, I did an entire podcast on it in February, early March, about how they were late to jump on, and they said, we'll have stuff by late spring. Well, the shark and all those other designs, they were super hot at that moment. Look, Marvel obviously, they're releasing a Cyclops book in the next couple of weeks, and it seems to be perfectly timed with this Cyclops trailer. Now they're they're releasing comics. They know the schedule well enough, and the film division is talking to the publishing division, and they're getting on the same page that a Cyclops comics will be coming in stores 2 weeks after Cyclops is the hot Doomsday trailer. If you can do that, you can believe that the Marvel Rivals visuals and the representation of those characters should be in your comics at the same time that the game is blowing up, not running to catch up. But that is the story of Marvel, and I believe the story of the comic book industry in 2025. But you fixed it, and that's the title of this. You fixed it. You fixed Marvel. I went so bold in some of these is to say, you're the publisher of Marvel Comics. Congratulations, you got the job. Fix Marvel. So we're going to dive right into this, and we're going to take up you. These are your answers. I'm going to read your names, your screen names, and I'm going to say what you said. There is occasionally I will dive in and tell you a lot of what was going on in regards to the groupthink in some of these answers. But I asked you guys, what would you change? What would you do to make Marvel more successful, to catch them up, to bridge the gap that has clearly been lost as DC has grabbed all the momentum? Look, Gotham City Comics, the guy is like, DC is so much hotter than Marvel. You don't have to throw a rock in any direction further than 2 feet to hit anyone who will agree with that notion in 2025. Image had a big year. Image generated a lot of heat. We've covered it on the show. Marvel, fix Marvel. And look, as you're going to see, the prevailing notion that you're going to discover as I share these with you is just so many fans have fallen out of love and have been frustrated by the X-Men, which they used to love, Spider-Man, which they used to love, the Marvel basically Heroes line, which covers like Avengers, Fantastic Four. You guys are great. Your opinions are great. And you guys came with the big time ideas. So why not give you a forum? And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to give you the forum. Some stuff was semi-offensive, so we're not going to engage in that. And some of this stuff there is some wishful thinking, but wishful thinking is okay. Wishful thinking falls under a gentleman named Robert Davis suggested that they give all comic book creators ownership stake in anything that they create, in addition to royalties, incentives, and page rates. Now, this harkens back to a time that I was signing deals that gave me, in 1991, the deals that I was signing in 1990. Cable, Domino, Strife, Shatterstar, Deadpool, all the characters that I created. My list of characters with Marvel is in the many hundreds, and I get a percentage. Comic book sales, toys, action figures, the games, movies. They wiped that away. They took that off the board somewhere late 90s. He's saying they should reinstate that. When I say that this is wishful thinking, that goes to the deep corporate culture that comes from Disney. And I just feel that they are 1,000% reluctant to go in that direction And so, and I also don't believe that will fix Marvel. I don't think there's a bunch of guys who are lined up with a bunch of killer new characters. A lot of people point to Miles Morales when the artist, I don't really want to stir up. She made a comment that if she had gotten creator royalties, she said part of the unhappiness of her life is that she does not participate in Miles Morales. The majority of people and I was shocked, that responded, and you can see those commentaries. I think it's what prompted her response. The majority on Threads, on Facebook, on Instagram, on X, where you just created a Spider-Man derivative. That's all you did. Like at the end, and people were like, shouldn't Stan and Steve Ditko get those checks? I mean, at the end of the day, the character is Spider-Man. The character, the movie that has brought Miles to greater awareness is called Into the Spider-Verse, not Into the Miles-verse, Into the Spider-Verse. And there are multitudes of Spider variants. I used to have Spider-Ham on my desk, but in my cleaning, I took it to another room. But there have been Spider-Man derivatives just spilling over for the last 20 years, of which Miles is one of them. So I don't think there's a lot of new ideas coming. I think there's a lot of derivatives, and Marvel is definitely not going to give you a piece of a derivative unless, and I'm going to give you a wrinkle here, I do know for a fact that depending on your nature, your standing, your favoritism within the company, they will cut you a special deal. That's not my tea to spill, but it separates the guy who gets greater participation from his Spider-Man derivative than the guy that got zero participation from his Captain America Bucky derivative. Okay, or So a lot of people use this. Go back to basics. Ernie, I'm just going to call you Ernie. Ernie said, go back to basics. Go back to what made the characters popular. Treat every comic as if it is someone's first issue. He also said, think about new distribution options. Look, there's a report that I was reading towards the end of the year, and Barnes & Noble is opening more and more stores after, as the case with so much, the bookstores, the Borders and the Barnes & Nobles. Borders went out of business. Barnes & Noble scaled back. They scaled back here in Southern California. Now they're opening up more and more and more and more stores. And I've told you that the Marvel and DC shelves are small. And I mean, when I say that this is the width of the books that Marvel and DC get on two shelves, and behind me to the wall, all around my office is manga, that's true. But yes, I would love to see spinner racks back in comic books, accessible. The reason these are here on behind me is for when now my nephews are getting a lot older, but the youngest of them is still 11. He likes to wander in, he grabs comics, he flips through them. These are reader copies. They're there. They're some of the greatest of each and every run. The Frank Miller Daredevil run is on there. When he comes in and picks it up, he's encountering the greatness that I encountered. The John Byrne X-Men's, oh, don't fall. The John Byrne X-Men's right here. These are the greatness. The George Perez Annual. This is the greatness that I encountered. Accessible. They're reader copies. Read through them. Tear them. I don't care. Let them feed your excitement. I have really tony, nice, beautiful, high-grade copies of all of them in Mylars and slabs. I would love for the distribution network to have comic books that weren't graphic novels, that maybe, hey, right now, as we're trying to figure out where we are in the United States of America economically, where is our fortunes, where do our fortunes lie, where's the economy? Is it $20, a $30 graphic novel? Maybe a bit much, yeah, but a couple dollars, a cheaper version, a reader copy driven initiative in stores, maybe on the lesser known paper, but some of the best stories, just like what Marvel was doing with True Believers, just what Dan DiDio was fighting, which probably got him shown the door, because old Neil Adams Batman comics, turns out people did want those. Much to the chagrin of DiDio, who loudly complained, I can't believe we're investing in reprints. Reprints were what I was raised on. If this is your first episode with me, just know that in 1977, while I was buying the latest, as Spider-Man was heading towards its 200th issue in 1978, I was able to pick up Spider-Man issues from his first couple of years through the digests, the first 30 issues with Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. I was able to pick up in the hundreds with Gil Kane, John Romita Sr. I was exposed to so many key past adventures, and I love those just as much. Same with the X-Men, same with the Avengers, same with the Fantastic Four. I was getting the modern day 1977, 1976, 1978 version of these characters, while I was also getting the 1968, 1969, 1967 version of those characters. I was getting the best of both worlds, and it only served to excite me and get me more riled up. So I love, Ernie, I love your distribution option. A gentleman named Dwayne says, hire actual talent that have good stories to tell and are creating art and stories that resonate and hit people in the same way. Stop placating the shadow bosses behind the scene. Stop looking for the big money up front. Let stories breathe and resonate with audiences instead of agendas and algorithms. Okay. The guy from Gotham City Central, when they said, why is DC, and he said, why is DC having such a breakout against Marvel? And he said, it's because Marvel is not offering the same storytelling. At the end of the day, what after the covers, after we get home and we've gotten the covers that we want, it's the stories that are going to keep you coming back. It's the stories that are going to keep you coming back. For the reason I loved the Avengers above all else when I was a kid was the Ultron stories, was the Kang the Conqueror stories, was Count Nefaria, even Graviton, okay? Korvac, all of these incredible stories that were just irresistible, and I just had to return each and every time. There does seem to always be something that everybody has to tie into, that they generally believe brings up the bottom line of the books through a shared experience. But it's not what I grew up on. It's not what made me fall in love with comics. I think it's time to try something new. And again, when going back to books that have worked this year, that have had breakout success, that have exceeded expectations, I do believe it's the storytelling, it's the stories, it's the art. Jason Major says, I would have 3 months of untold tales. This is How to Fix Marvel, featuring the very best writers and artists who previously worked on the main titles that we could find. Each book would also carry a legacy number on them. After 3 months, bring back the legacy numbering on key titles. The 3 months was to give editorial time to discuss the characters with brand new creative teams, to look at what works and what didn't. An example of what to do with Spider-Man would be an adjectiveless Spider-Man by Jeff Loeb and another artist, possibly with artists from Rob's Extreme Studios. I believe that should be done with artists that reflect Todd McFarlane, because that's the adjectiveless Spider-Man success was with Todd McFarlane and Eric Larson. I see what he's saying here. And there was a period back when Marvel was more successful, around 2019, before the pandemic, when they were hearkening back and bringing back Jim Starlin and Ron Lim on a Silver Surfer, story arc, or a Thanos story arc, or attempting to bring back Peter David and Dale Keown. I'm not sure if that happened. But getting serving up greatest hits that do serve nostalgia. It's something that I think when they've done it, they've been very successful at. Clint Wayne, he names names. Clint Wayne says, I'd hire Mark Silvestri and Chris Claremont on the X-Men books and limit them only to X-Men, X-Factor, New Mutants. Hire Rob Liefeld and Walt Simonson to do the Avengers family of books, Captain America, Iron Man. Bring back Marvel Presents as a way of testing in new talent. Give Spider-Man one single book. Focus on action and fun books. Get books back out to the masses through stores, gas stations. Again, everybody kind of touches on the accessibility. Look, Target, it'd be great to have comic books in Target. And yet they're loss leaders. They're cheap. These companies, the bigger ones, they can write them off as promotional material. They can write them off in their expensive report. The big box stores, I definitely agree. Get more comic books in there. Have them exposed beyond just the bookstores, because the family goes to Target and goes to Walmart. I've seen them. I've seen the family, huddled around the shopping cart. Mom's got the kids, dad, everybody. They're there for kind of an all-purpose experience. Get some clothes, get some groceries, maybe a toy, maybe an electronic. Make sure comics are there. That's a great way. That's a great, absolute, fantastic. The thing with Silvestri and Claremont, here's the deal. You're going to have to make it worth their while. Write them big checks. And I told you already, Jeff Loeb was the one that taught the industry how to plan on future royalties. Scheme it out. What's this going to sell? How long is it going to sell? Do a projection. Include the trade paperback, the digital downloads, the hardcover. Put it all in a pool and write Mark Silvestri the biggest check that he's ever seen that he can't say no to. That's what I'd want. I still think Mark has drawn the best Batman story in the last 20 years. His Batman Joker is, I was looking at it just earlier today. There's a phrase called, it made me want to lick the pages. That's because they were so delicious to absorb. Mark's a big talent who I think revisiting the X-Men again, the last time he did it with Grant Morrison was a non-traditional X-Men story. It took place in the future. It had a big giant bird character. It wasn't a reflection of the relevance of the X-Men that were in the now. It was a future tale. Getting big talent is going to be a theme you're going to see that's visited time and again. I got a lot of these. Ray is one of many who said fire everyone. Fire everyone. Look, I've talked to you about it. So the trades finally came out. The trades, I don't make the news. I report the news, and I am going to damn well zip this up. Okay. The news came out, and it was in the Daily Variety and Hollywood Reporter and Deadline, and reported on podcasts such as The Town by Matt Bellany, that Marvel had a lousy year, not a single breakout hit, not one movie that was profitable. Yes, they're finally admitting to you that Fantastic Four was not profitable, that it did not make enough money to make it profitable. And stop. When the robot Marvel brains, who are clearly fried to hell, who can't process clarity of thought, but the toys, no. Those Fantastic Four toys are already in discount bins. They were pretty quickly because no one wanted God honest, they didn't want Reed Richards in a sweater. They didn't want the Thing in a sweater. We know that they put Thing in a sweater in the movie so that all that they had to do was the face or the hands be rocks. Because doing the whole body would have been that much more expensive. Okay, we get it. You wanted to cut some budget, have him wear a full sweater, cover all of his rocks, pants, the whole thing, stuff that he never appeared as I was a kid. When the Thing appeared in comics of the entirety of my youth, from 7 to 17, Ben Grimm was rocking bare chest, bare legs, bare arms. A sweater, the Thing with the sweater and Reed Richards with the sweater are not the equivalent of this guy. Okay, they're not a Deadpool, a Cable. They don't look like they could fit in the pantheon of a G.I. Joe playability, because trust me, X-Force had some G.I. Joe in it. I know. I created X-Force. I was there. It was my influence. It was my influences that I was pouring into them. When I first met the guy who had run Marvel for about a decade, Avi Arad, he says, "You get the toyetic quality of what we're doing." He said he did sound like a Transylvanian vampire, even though he was Israeli. He looked like you understand. You understand. You get the hardware and the software. I've shared this with you before, and then he bit my neck and drained my blood. That's not true. So don't tell me that it was toys and licensing that saved Fantasy Four. It didn't. It tanked. Thunderbolts tanked. Captain America tanked. They are listed as losers of the year for a reason. So after 5 years of failing to catch fire with anything other than a legacy Spider-Man movie that Sony got to cash all the checks on, that Marvel maybe got a 10% share. It's out there. The trades will tell you. They've got the details if I'm missing them. Or Deadpool Wolverine, your two biggest hits in 5 years, post-Endgame. You know, it wasn't Thor Love and Thunder. It wasn't Marvel's. I mean, it wasn't the Doctor Strange sequel. No matter what, they just didn't connect. As I got on here, Baltimore has fired Jim Harbaugh from the Ravens job. All Jim Harbaugh does is win. Had a crappy year, and now they're kicking him out. he's got a Kevin Feige. He's got a better record than Kevin Feige over the last 5 years, and they fired Jim Harbaugh. Guys like Feige and the people in the executive suites are protected, and if they're not leaving, it's obviously not going to be the people in the publishing whose failures are felt less, because publishing isn't requiring hundreds of millions of dollars for every production. Okay, comic books are much cheaper to produce. But as I have said to you all year long, and we are here to be honest and to be brave and to be bold and not to be scared. I speak my mind without the fear of repercussions. I just don't care. I earned my independence 30 years ago. I speak my mind. It upsets people because you want to speak your mind and you can't. So you can't stand that someone else is speaking their mind. A buddy of mine said, I do not pick a fight that I cannot win because I win in armed with all my facts. And that's the truth. I'm only interested in facts. But firing everyone at Marvel is likely not a solution. Quality storytelling, Gabe weighed in. Quality storytelling. Consequences, long-lasting impact. I told you 20-some minutes ago that the death of Elektra shook me. Now, I didn't see that Frank would have already been planning to have Elektra be resurrected by the Hand and that take us on another adventure that was kind of baked into the entire thing. But after he resurrected her, after he redeemed her, no one touched Elektra but Frank for the next 7 years. And then he brought Elektra back in a graphic novel called Elektra Lives. There was an Elektra prequel series that he did with Bill Sienkiewicz that was great, that was really weird and avant-garde, and we all dug it. But that was a prequel. But nobody took, and still it's by Frank Miller. That was in 86, 87. But the first fresh, original Elektra adventure, Elektra Lives, this graphic novel, which is one of my, if not maybe my favorite single image, single issue, single job of Frank Miller's. It is dynamic. It is so brilliantly, the storytelling, the pacing, the characterization, the stakes, the consequences, everything that makes you just love Frank Miller. He had it on display completely in Elektra Lives. Frank felt betrayed in the 90s when they decided that they needed some hits, and they went and they grabbed Elektra and they made a comic book without him or his consultation. That pissed him off. He was very vocal about it. He was not happy. That's their right, though. We all know that. Because of that, and because of stuff like that, I knew that when I created Deadpool and Cable and Domino and all the different characters in X-Force, that eventually other people would tell their stories, even if they were bad stories. And there's been plenty of really bad Deadpool stories. Marvel cannot have they have not been able to create a regular series of Deadpool comics that connect. You know who told me that? C.B. Cebulski. He told me that 2 years ago at New York Comics. I don't know, we just can't seem to get a comic book. I can tell you why, because it doesn't reflect any of the vibes that you were getting from the first two Deadpool movies. In the trailer, when Deadpool goes over the car with one bullet, his last bullet, and he has to take out three guys, and he blows it through their heads. Tim Miller always knew that was a giant money shot. It's the way the original trailer ended. Hall 8 erupted on its feet, flipping out, going crazy. That was the fulfillment of a guy who is an assassin, who is a mercenary. That's what a mercenary and assassin. That's how he would be more violent. There's all manner of violence, and it's R-rated in Deadpool, but they did not lean into that. At one point in one of the recent Deadpool comics, he had a giant dog. He had a big red dog, just like the big red dog in the cartoons. I was baffled. This is not that. In the pitch session, you should know ahead of time. Try this as an annual, but this is not the basis with which to build a series on. But they tried it, it failed. They just don't seem to be able to read the room at any given space or time. They are now promising us a very, very violent Deadpool book, the Wade Wilson comic. We'll see. Good luck. One guy, his name's Diom, not Dion, with an M. No crossovers. No crossovers. Guarantee 12 issues every book that gets greenlit. Hard to do, but if you only greenlit a certain amount of them, it's completely doable. You know, you're going to get down here where people start picking on the different families. One guy said, great ideas in this thread. I also want to throw my hat in on no more number one reboots. Go back to original numberings. Reduce the output down to 10 core titles: Spider-Man, X-Men, Captain America, Avengers, Iron Man, Hulk, Fantastic Four, Thor, Doctor Strange, and Daredevil. Perhaps the easiest thing to do among that, try the 70s corner box art again and company mastheads. Worth trying. In my opinion, this is worth trying. But the most important here, and you'll hear it throughout all these answers, shrink the line. The line's gotten too big. I stopped buying the X-Men in 2025. I stopped buying it at all. There was one illustrator who did X-Men work that I responded to. Everybody else, I felt were not ready for primetime players. I talked about it on another podcast that I did with Eric Kennedy. I think it's called Ink Pulp. I spoke of the fact that there was a time, and someone already said so, stuff like Marvel Comics Presents, DC's bonus books in the 80s were meant to break young talent in, get them to find their voice, be stronger. Putting some of these people on X-Men titles before their time. The X-Men is supposed to be the Maserati, the Lamborghini of the line. It's supposed to be done by the best of everyone, not the guys breaking in. You're like, but Rob, I had proven myself. Hawk and Dove was a runaway success story at DC that overachieved and became a top seller for them. Jumped into the a E or D list character group. Jumped into the B+ level of sales. Marvel called me, said, we've got more work for you. Would you like to come and do what you do with us? Hawk and Dove was 100+ pages of me cutting my teeth on top of the short stories that I'd already done. So by the time I got to New Mutants, between annuals and Hawk and Dove and short stories, I had already done year and a half, 15 issues, 16 issues worth of comics, hundreds of pages. Okay. Frank L says, kill 90% of the X-Men characters and X-Men books and 90% of the Avengers books. Focus on the core characters. I didn't buy an X-Men book. There are too many of them. I don't want all these characters. I don't want a Psylocke book, a Rogue book, a Magic book. Make them special. Make Magic someone I only get in the pages of X-Force, X-Factor, New Mutants, whichever book she's assigned to. I look and I see when the X-Men books were exploding under myself was Portacio, Jim Lee, Mark Silvestri. It was Wolverine. It was X-Factor. It was X-Men. It was X-Force. Go back to smaller books with greater impact. It's not brain surgery. ABC at the turn of the century, late 1999 into early 2000, they blew up with a game show called How to Be a Millionaire. It went from twice a week, three times a week to at some point 5 days a week, and they burned it out. It was too much. The sales dropped and they had to scale it back, and then the damage was done and they eventually got rid of it. It was the cash cow, the host who had been a daytime talk show host for my entire, way before I was born. My mom loved Regis Philbin, and he'd be like, I'm number one. I'm the king of tea. And he was for a time. And then they decided to do too much. They did too much How to Be a Millionaire. And it was too much for the audience. It wasn't special. It was being crammed down our throats. People turned on it. They've scaled back on all manner of shows over the years because they've given us too much. Marvel needs to do the same thing. Again, according to you guys, cut it down. Less books. Focus on the core. John Baxter says, have comics look and feel like the 90s when the books sold better and readers were eager to jump in. Okay, I'm going to tell you right now. I got email today. People are still grabbing their Youngblood 2s when they can get them. And they're talking to me. They're sending me. And they're like, Rob, I love Youngblood. I love the big, splashy action sequences, the big imagery. Guys, I'm purposely giving you something that you're not going to get anywhere else because I can do it. I can push my book and make it 30 pages, not be reined into 20. I can give you bigger visuals. If I want to go for a big, giant 2-page shot of somebody's face, I can do that. Without sacrificing story, I can do it just for fun, just to get it out there, just to entice you. The 90s, what we were doing as storytellers, as page designers, suddenly caught on. And you saw Andy Kubert and Adam Kubert, two incredible artists, two incredible draftsmen. They had been doing stuff like Batman and Predator, and they had been doing maybe some Tarzan jobs. Suddenly, they were doing bigger. Somebody showed a bunch of Capullo work on Facebook the other day and said, oh my gosh, I didn't know that he started out as a John Romita Jr. clone And they showed his X-Force annual with, I think, the Shatter Shot, and then the Quasar stuff. And then you can see, and I've seen Greg at Amazing Arizona Comic-Con 2016 say, they told me to be more extreme. I had to be more extreme. That's him not saying that. They said, be more Rob Liefeld. His pages got bolder, his storytelling, his figures. There was something that we did that the Kubert started doing, that the Capullo did. Mark Silvestri looked me in the face and said, Rob, I'm on to you. I've been studying your layouts. I'm going to start Cyberforce #1. He said, Rob, I'm incorporating the stuff that I see you do. We got into people's system, and it wasn't exciting. Man, going to the comic store was a ramp. What's Dale Keown going to do? What's Todd going to do to stay out in front? What's Rob going to do to stay ahead? What's Jim going to do? What's Will's going to do? What's Eric going to do? What's Jim Valentino going to do? What's Mark doing? Oh my gosh. And he draws better than all of them. The Kuberts, what are they doing? Jay Lee freaking suddenly giant double page splashes, incredible veins, big giant muscles. People are discovering some of Jay Lee's old work and going, he doesn't draw anything like this. Jay went from like heavy metal to writing poetry. His work is very quiet and very delicate now in its line work and its approach. He used to be loud, like Simon Beasley, meets Rob Liefeld meets, It was big, it was loud, it was muscular, it was veins. It was double page splashes. Jay frickin' Lee, not the poetry, not the wistful characters that you see now. These were raging. Look at his Namor work. Look at his X Factor work. Look at the work that he did for me on Youngblood Strike File with Chapel. It's a completely different gear. Everybody had a blast. They went for it. Iron was sharpening. Iron was sharpening iron all over the comics industry. I saw John Bogdanov on Superman, on the Man of Steel, or whichever book that he was drawing. He got bigger, splashier. Everyone was doing this. This is what this guy means when he says 90s art. I still pick up a bunch of books where the writers are trying to get the artist to cram 9 to 10 panels on a page. If you don't give them room to breathe, if you don't give them the big stuff, and by give them, I mean not just the artist, the audience, they're going to put it back. We don't want to know how great you'll write your screenplay. Go and write your screenplay. Marvel opened up the doors and allowed, because they favored Bendis as much as they did, and he... Oh my gosh. He wanted to show you how well he would write screenplays and could write dialogue, and people talking back and forth. And a generation of people just put those comics back and said, I'll be back when this isn't happening anymore. It really is just insane how the comic book industry turned as fast as it did to be talky because writers suddenly had the reins, because Marvel said, if we make the writers the people that we put their names in lights, we coordinate with the press, we say these are the guys that matter, you should be buying books because this guy's writing them. It was short term. It wasn't long term. It could never and would never have borne out, and it did not bear out. It eventually, the wheels fell off of that stuff for a reason, because we like drawing, we like art. I'm going to keep going here. You fixed Marvel. These are all great ideas. Any 1, 2, 3 of these. Brian S. said, hire editors that know the canon. Hire editors that can proofread and that are focused only 100% on their comics. Encourage editors to make books profitable, giving bonuses based on sales. Did you know that Bob Harris got a bonus for all of the X-Men books? And he knew that. He was incentivized to go and get Jim Lee and put Mark on Wolverine and get Wills on Uncanny and put me on New Mutants, later X-Force. He got a big bonus check at the end of the year. He got a percentage of those sales that was given to him at the end of the year. He got it at the end of the business year. So he was looking forward to something the entire year. Jim Salicrup, same thing. I'm not sure if they do it again. I just know that it was happening in the 90s. Make Marvel eye candy by making great art the top priority. Recruit better talent. Bring in seasoned pros to revive lagging books. Hire Rob Liefeld as the head of the X books. Hire Eric Larson as the creative over Spider books. Hire Robert Kirkman as the creative over Captain America, Iron Man, Hulk, Fantastic Four, Thor, Ghost Rider, Punisher, Daredevil, and the Avengers. Bring back Marvel Comics Presents. Give John Byrne, Chris Claremont, Tom DeFalco, Marv Wolfman, Jeff Loeb, Scott Lobdell writing work. Try again to get Jim Lee back on the X-Men. Stop with all the reboots. Get your comic books in gas stations, in movie theaters, in big box stores. Listen to reader feedback. Mitchell G says, go back to original numbering. Limit the franchise to 2 spin-off books max. This is so what everyone is saying. The one thing everyone agrees on is they're publishing way too many books. Way too many books with talent that can't sustain it, that sit there on the shelves, that are not productive to the bottom line. Don't rely on digital coloring to fill out detail in the art. Make artists draw lines, learn rendering. That's more of a stylistic bend. Leave buzzworthy dangling plot threads, as Claremont did with, like, who is the X-Trader? Just make sure that you resolve them. Limit your crossovers. Every 2 years. It doesn't have to be every few months. And do not make them franchise-wide. Michael L. says, focus on the artists. Get back to the big-time interior artists. Dial back all the cover variants, is what Michael L. says. James H. says, there's only so many times you can reimagine and reheat Stan Lee and Jack Kirby's ideas. The reason the 90s were the last great time in comic books was it was probably the last time that creative people gave Marvel a ton of new characters. This will obviously never happen again, but I would create a highly incentivized program to encourage creators to put new characters and new life into the Marvel Universe rather than derivatives. Work on expanding royalties, percentages on merchandise, percentages on adaptations. What's happened also, and you can tell by these answers, just like with cinephiles, the people who watch movies, between all the commentary, all the extras, everyone, podcast, everyone's gotten a lot smarter. Everyone's gotten a lot more informed. Just like in sports, we know so much more about data-driven, statistics now, performances. The comic book people are very informed. When Ed Brubaker goes out and says, I don't get what I'm worth on Winter Soldier. When Sarah Pacelli says, I don't get what I'm worth on Miles Morales. And so on and so forth. Jim Starlin says, I don't get what I'm worth on Thanos. They listen, they read. It's been exposed. So that's why the fans come with these solutions, because they believe that Marvel can do better, should do better, in order to attract the big dudes. Dan H. says, cancel everything. Go back to basics. No multiple story arcs. Make it like when Jim Shooter was there. Hire top talents. Pay them appropriately. Publish only the X-Men, Hulk, Avengers, Cap, Thor, Iron Man, Spider-Man for starters. Do Marvel Comics Presents and give your minor heroes exposure. Can't argue with any of these. X-Men get their own reality where the other Marvel heroes are there, but it's not the ones that you read about in their own comic books. Drop the politics. Reset everything to the early 90s canon. Maybe post-Onslaught. Another guy, a very educated, attract new talent, offer better payment, royalties, ownership, pay your artists and writers better. Return to the classic Marvel method of stories. That's 777. 7, open on action. 7, do character interactions. Follow Peter Parker to the Daily Bugle. The opening 7 is him taking out a criminal, the Rhino, Sandman who's trying to rob a bank. Then he goes home. He goes into work. He's got problems. Mary Jane's crying. She's got to cancel plans. Then the last 7 pages, he's attacked. That's 777. That got you to 21 pages, which was generally throw a splash page in there, you're 22. That's what people are talking about. That's the Stan Lee method. That's the Jim Shooter method that they're talking about. Fire everyone at Marvel under the age of 45. It will automatically fix itself. I wrote nothing in this thread. I wrote nothing. The title of these questions were, congratulations, you're the publisher at Marvel, fix it, okay? And again, Justin R says 14 books, one Wolverine, total of 5 X-Men books. That's it. And you guys, the other thing is that gives you one a week. That gives you one a week. You get X-Men, you get Uncanny, you get X-Factor, you get X-Force, you get Wolverine. Boom. You got 5 books. It's the prevailing notion through all of this. Cut back the families, 3 titles each. Again, this is, very common. And who said that was Joel L. Joel L. Trevor S. Get comic books to where the people are. Lower the cost of the single issue comic book so that they can be seen as disposable. Create profit sharing for the teams. Put creator rights at the forefront. Offer better royalty systems. Publish half his books. Michael C. says, publish half his books as you are currently. Take bigger swings with unique pitches instead of the same old stuff. The same old safe slop. Look, I've told you also in the 70s, they just threw it all against the wall. That's where you got your Killraven. That's where you got your Black Goliath. That's where you got Luke Cage Power Man. That's where you got Iron Fist, where you got Shang-Chi Master of Kung Fu, where you got Man-Thing, okay? They got more sword and sorcery. Conan, Cole. They were constantly looking to expand because they wanted to go beyond the superheroes. You definitely get the feeling that that's not the case any longer. A lot of people want better talent, and look, beauty is in the eye of the beholder as always. But you can see a rookie and maybe a veteran. You can understand that. You can make that delineation. People want older names again, and more calls for John Byrne in some capacity. David Smith, fire all editors. Get rid of editorial. Back the Brink truck up to Robert Kirkman House. Make him the editor-in-chief. Put creatives as editors. Get Dan Jurgens for Spider-Man. Get Walt Simonson for Fantastic Four. Says something nice about me. I won't go any further. But that was from David Smith. David S. Appreciate you. All right, I'm going to end with Kevin Grievous is an actor and a writer and a producer, and he was most notably a giant Lycan in the Underworld movies. He jumped in here. Kevin said, close the Marvel New York offices, move the entire thing to Los Angeles. The overhead there is far too expensive. Disney has plenty of buildings that they can use for less than half the cost of working in New York City. Cut your line to 25 titles. In 1971, Marvel was publishing 25 titles, and 4 of those titles were reprint books. Go back to 25 titles because it's easier to manage. Then if you want, slowly build back up to 35, 40. Cap it there. Add 64-page anthology books, Marvel Tales, Marvel Premiere, Marvel Preview, Marvel Fanfare. These were the books you can try new talent out and do evergreen stories with the characters. No more multiple titles. Only Spider-Man, only X-Men, only Avengers. One writer per title. You don't need to be one guy writing 3 to 5 titles a month. That's crazy, and it gives them the power to monopolize certain characters. Cut your editorial staff. It creates a too many cooks in the kitchen scenario. You have a line of 25 books. Hire 5 editors. They each get an assistant. That's all you need. Writer-generated stories. Most of the time, it's the editors that are coming up with the storylines, and they find a writer to execute their storylines. Stop it. Let the writers come up with their own stories. Adventure stories first. No more of these slice-of-life nonsense books. Superhero books are about action and adventure, all caps. Saturday matinees in comic book form. Number 9, limit event books. The event book should only be read in the main book. No more gouging the fans with 60 tie-in titles. No more interrupting a mainstream story with a 3-issue tie-in arc. Number 10, go back to original numbering. Keep the nostalgia of what happened in the past. 11, no more relaunches. These artificially inflate your revenue. It's not fair to the fan. No more legacy characters. This was a DC thing, and Marvel stayed away from it for a reason. Nowadays, I can understand why it's done in some cases, but it's gone too far. The main character has to take the backseat to his understudy and always has to make a comment on how much better they were on the role that they were in. Truth be told, there should only be one Spidey, one Thor, one Cap, one Hulk, one Black Panther, one Iron Man, not several of each. Stop the derivatives. They are diluting your brands. 13, bring back heroism. Too many heroes are now scumbags with no true sense of justice. Comics used to be about morality, not now it's about how immoral you can be and get away with it. 14, bring back evil villains. Nowadays, I hear that villains can only be so bad, or else some audience members will think that the writer is like that. That is ridiculous. 15, maintain comic book community. Continuity should come from other comics, not the movies. The movies should always be reflecting what is in the comic books, not the other way around. 16, creator rights. You create a character, you should share in the revenue it generates. In fact, I think comics should be under the jurisdiction of the WGA, Writers Guild of America. Number 17, get comic books in more stores. You can get a monthly comic book mag in stores like Walmart or Target easily. Whether it's oversized or in a digest form, these big corporations can do it. Sell comic books in movie theaters. This is a no-brainer. You have a captive audience you can sell to at any time during a run of any Marvel movie. Kevin Grievous, we are going to end there. He nailed it. He was the most succinct, the most creative, and I just appreciate so much. Guys, you fixed Marvel. Let's see if they'll listen. You fixed Marvel. I put the call out. What would you do to fix it? You gave all manner of answers. I could not get to all of them. We'll do another mailbag special in the near future. Thank you for responding in the way that you did. You guys really came correct. You came big. You had great ideas, and we are all the better for them. It is crazy how much of the shared attitudes and opinions there are over the course of this entire discussion. Everybody sees the same thing. Now will Marvel see it, embrace it, and make the change. You guys, I already told you about my Facebook page. I am on what used to be called Twitter. It's called X, at Robert Liefeld, ROBERT, Woo, mouthful. That's me on X. I'm reading your comments, your messages, your replies. I love hanging with you guys. Thank you for seeking me out on X. Thanks for hanging out with me. I read all of it, even if it's insulting and crude. I just mute you. I don't ever interact with you again. But hey, at least I read it. Instagram at Rob Liefeld, ROBLIEFELD. Just like on X, I have a blue check signifying that it is real, not some phony account. I read all your messages, your replies, your comments, your DMs. Thank you so much for interacting with me. Me and my boy Scotty are putting together some crazy videos and reactions. And yes, I am giving stuff blind all the time. I'd have it no other way. If you can't see sometimes the panic in me, then I don't know what's wrong, because I am seriously panicked because so much of that stuff is absolutely 1000% flying blind. Instagram at Rob Liefeld, X at Robert Liefeld. Both have a blue check. Follow me. I would love to encounter you on those platforms. On TikTok, I am also Rob Liefeld, blue check. Nope, they haven't given me a blue check, but we are blowing up. You guys are exploding on TikTok in a way that the other platforms have not experienced. I love hanging with you. That's me talking to you, chatting with you, interacting with you. Again, with Scotty, sharing some fun content with you, just expanding. I love social media. I love the connectivity that it provides. I've already told you about my Facebook group. I'm on Whatnot. Follow me. Get the app. Search out Rob Liefeld. Give me a follow. You'll be alerted when I go live with exclusive comics, exclusive art, exclusive signatures. So much of what we are doing is limited. It is collectible. It is in very restricted quantities. I try and make the experience special for you on Whatnot. As we wrap up, hope you're having a great start to your year. Hope that you're not overdoing it already. I hope you got the rest that you needed during the holidays, that you experienced friendship and laughter and love. I hope that your mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being is exactly where it needs to be. We are rooting for you at all times. Thank you for hanging with us. If the grind is getting you down, again, step away and have that Reese's Big Cup. Have that sugar. Have that special cheat something, okay? Because it's worth it, okay? Get your mind off the stress. Redirect. Reach out. Find friends. Receive love. Give love. You guys, thanks as always. Be well. Do well. I will be back. You know, I'll be here. Come back. Get me. Do not leave me there. we will be back again soon because we will most definitely, absolutely, inevitably, we're going to talk again, you and me, right here, real soon.